Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here with the Week 10 must-start fantasy football players. So, hey, Monday Night Football is a good game. Enjoyed watching it. Now, I hit my second 10-leg same-game parlay with the Colts and Steelers. I played a lot of unders and, again, played conservatively. Now, I played plenty of these. Usually have a voucher on DraftKings where you can play a Thursday, a Sunday, and a Monday, and they give you, if you play a 10-leg parlay, you get a double profit boost. So I played, whenever that Chargers game against Denver is probably 5 weeks ago or so. So I played most of those nights, play one parlay. So I don't know, I probably played 12 to 15 of them, and I've hit two of them, which isn't bad. And there's a number where I've hit 9. And what I continue to tell you is if you have that ability to have a profit boost on those. You're betting a small amount, so that's fine. I'm putting $10 on it, and when you cash out, you're winning $200 when you're at the profit boost. But again, conservative bets is the way to go. And in my same game parlay, I wonder if I could look it up here. And it was really one where it wasn't really that close. It was a pretty easy win. The only one that was close, Michael Pittman caught a late pass, but it didn't even put him close. And so, like, the only player I had over was Deontay Johnson. I had Deontay Johnson coming in at, here, I'll tell you exactly what I took. So for the game, I took Kenny Pickett with under 269 yards. Again, I took the conservative routes. He didn't even make 200 yards, I don't think. And Matt Ryan under 274 yards. And again, did he barely go much over 200? Probably not. I took Jonathan Taylor under 104.5 yards, and he had about 86. So I was glad I was very conservative with him because he did fairly well. And then I went Najee Harris under 79.5 yards, and the other running backs did really well, surprisingly. Harris was a little bit more than 3 yards a carry, which was interesting. Alec Pierce went under 59.5 yards. And again, he goose-egged for the second time in 3 games. Paris Campbell under 75 yards. Pittman under 94. Again, very conservative bets. The only over, like I said, Deontay Johnson over 29 yards. He had that in the first half. I took the alternate spread of the Steelers plus 7.5, and I put the game total at under 49.5. And so, again, it's a 10-leg same-game parlay. So that's my advice to you. You're not going to win a lot of them. There's always going to be that one fly in the ointment, but hit two, and again, don't get too risky with them when you're adding up a number of those and you're having fun. You're playing a small amount and trying to win something. So that's the first thing. So what else do I have cooking here today? The other thing is that, we talk about predicting fantasy, and it's all probabilities. I always feel bad when I give somebody start sit advice and it doesn't come through. Do take this very seriously. It's my job. But we can't, we all knew what was going to happen on Sundays and Mondays. We'd all win the Millie Maker every week. We'd all have the perfect lineup where we got every guy that went off and we avoided every guy that busted. But the NFL is weird. But we live in the world of probabilities. So that's why I always give you a why when I give you a rationale behind a player. It's because I don't want to just tell you, start this guy, because I'm researching, watching, studying, learning about teams all year long. And my advice had better be better later in the season than it is early. Early in the season, we don't have a lot to go on. There aren't enough trends. But as we're restudying the trends every week, the 3-week recent trend, and adding that to the bigger picture, then when we're making informed decisions, the advice we're giving you is based on probability. If these teams played 10 times, 7 times, this result will be most likely. Those 3 times are going to happen 3 times, 30% of the time, maybe even 40% of the time. And when we're talking marginal players, we're looking just to get a 55-45 edge. When you're talking about a player that plays 20, 30 snaps a game or has a minor role in the offense, predicting that player, it has more unknown quantities to it. And that's what makes it difficult. But again, we look for probability edges. And so that's what you're doing. And when I give you the why to go with an answer, I give you, think it over yourself, see if it makes sense, and roll with that. And often I'll defer out. I'll give you everything I've got. And then I'll tell you, if you have a gut feel, go with it. Because it's in those scenarios, it's that close to where it's 50-50. Right close to 50-50. And it's your fantasy football team. So if you got a good feeling about a player, that's enough. that's enough to push it over the top. All right, let's talk about some of these players here. MSA, thank you. Appreciate that. Got a nice comment, dollar bill. We'll get your question at the end, 100%. All right, so let's talk about some players this week. When we say must start, some of these guys are obvious. Some aren't. Some are for DFS. Right. So let's talk about James Conner, who's really stepped it up in the last 3 weeks. He has played 96 or more percent of the snaps in 2 of his last 3 games. The game he missed, he had like 77. So he is full-time player right now. He scored in each of the last 3 games, 86 or more scrimmage yards in 2 of the last 3. The line is horrible. They're down 4 of their regular starters in the beginning of the season. IR is taking over. But the addition of Hollywood Brown helps because that's another receiver. Like they got DeAndre Hopkins, they got Hollywood Brown. Both of them in their own way respect a special level of attention. Hopkins being the true alpha, Marquise Brown having game-breaking speed when he gets the ball in his hands. So those put fear into defenses. And so we are going to see more defensive backs. We're going to see another player drop back into coverage. We're going to see a lot of nickels. We're going to see some dime defense, 5 and 6 defensive backs. And James Conner can work in those margins. And he's still just getting about 3 targets a game, but he's making use of those. But those could go up at a moment's notice. But so James Conner, volume based, again, with really no blocking. Last year he had a little bit, but it's worse. But yeah, volume based. And the next one, David Montgomery. So now Khalil Herbert's been out 2 games, and guess what? Montgomery goes for 100 scrimmage yards in both games. And that matchup with the Jets, honestly, that was a nightmare matchup because A, they have a top 7 or so run defense, and B, they weren't worried about Trevor Siemian. They weren't worried about any of the receivers. So the only person they had to worry about was David Montgomery. And yet Montgomery goes over 100 scrimmage yards. He's going to get volume. He's going to get snaps. Now, it was interesting. Darrington Evans came in. Darrington Evans is interesting, right? Because he came in with the Tennessee Titans a few years back, but he was always hurt. So he was supposed to be the guy that, subbed in for Derrick Henry. We've had a lot of those names come through, but Evans was never on the field. So we never knew what he was. And, we're not saying he's the second, revival of, the great running backs, in the past that had those backup roles, but he's good. I mean, he looks like he was good enough. And so, for a flex position in a 12-team league when you're struggling, Darrington Evans might be worth looking at. Now, will Tristan Ebner be the guy? I don't think so. I think going into the season, they were looking at Darrington Evans as their 3, and Ebner was kind of a project, 6th-round pick, good receiving back, kick returner, and I think they have a role for him down the pike a little bit. But Darrington Evans, again, in a 12-team league, injuries, buys, all that good stuff. So definitely. Gus Edwards returns to a 50% snap share, but that's about what he was seeing before. The Ravens, I don't think they're ever going to put a back out there for 75, 80%. Even when Dobbins and Edwards were going a couple of years ago, keep it split. And I think we're going to keep seeing that. And Edwards is getting good usage on his snaps. 16 carries. He went for a little more than 3 yards a carry. It was a rough run matchup, but he scores the touchdown. He comes through for fantasy. So, he's a solid play, and there'll be easier matchups coming. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he got 1 target finally, which is good, but just remember what you've got in him. You've got a guy that's just a runner. He had 1 target. He did get in the end zone last week, so that worked. His carries have been good, 15, 16, and 22 against the Rams. That was interesting. I heard the guys on the Athletic pods talking about that the Chiefs are like playing with their food last week. It was the most unimpressive 16-point victory, but they were disinterested. I mean, how can you get up for that game, right? And so anyway, though, Pacheco is, his yards, 82, 107, 86. Now that 1 target got him 17 yards, so that, got him a second game near 100 scrimmage yards, but that's what he is. He's like 10 standard points, 10 PPR points, 10 half PPR points, and that's good though. I mean, that's what you're looking for, and a lot of us, that's a great, mid-season ad or early season stash that worked out. Kyren Williams, I know the numbers haven't been there, but listen to this. His snap share in the 3 weeks he's been there, 27%, 55%, 70%. His targets and carries combined, 4 to 9 to 14. He'll have a role here. Now, the matchup against Kansas City wasn't good. Kansas City didn't have anything to worry about in the passing game because they didn't have to worry about the quarterback, Bryce Perkins. So the inside portion of the defense was compressed. But there are going to be games, and I know nobody's going to be respecting him, but there are going to be games against softer defenses, maybe this week, where Kyren Williams is going to have some of those catches and he's going to make a play. You could see the potential he has. He does have some juice, and so he's going to get some things going here a little bit. He's not going to again be a world breaker, but he's going to be a useful PPR option down the stretch here. Nico Collins, he's only a wide receiver 3-ish, flex maybe, but 26 targets over his last 3. He's definitely coming on a bit. 5 catches in each of his last 3 games, 44 to 49 yards, and it's about almost 10 PPR points each game. He did score in once, we went over that. And Kyle Allen will throw it up a little bit, and Collins had the same production that he had before, but nonetheless, he's getting the ball, and there will be an occasional matchup, and so we'll see how this works. But the targets are there as a flex. He's kind of a flex right now. Treylon Burks, in his 3 games, 6, 7, or 8 targets in a run-based offense. That's not bad. Now, the first game back, he had 24 yards. Now, that 111 he had against Green Bay, remember, they had the game put away, and instead of running the ball, they launched a 50-yard pass, and they caught it. But it counts. It counts for fantasy, right? But don't say that, don't look at the box score and say, man, 100-yard, game guy. Not yet. He had 70 yards last week, and this is on 4 catches. So, but he is developing. Now, he's ahead of Nico Collins, right? We talk about Collins as a flex, but now we're talking about somebody at a different level because Burks will get more downfield looks. He is clearly a better talent than someone like Collins, and Ryan Tannehill having the benefit of Derrick Henry, who we'll talk about tomorrow, that is allowing some one-on-one coverage down the field, and that's very beneficial for him. Darius Slayton, he has 58 or more yards in 6 of his last 7. And now his targets, he's really walking a fine line for fantasy, right? He's getting 3 to 6 targets a game. That's in 5 of his last 6. So literally, he's making a big play or a couple intermediate plays in the game, but he's been doing it with some consistency. So again, we're talking about that flex bucket because there's a week where that downfield pass isn't going to hit. That, the intermediate pass. He had that big play against Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's kind of indicative of what he's been. So just know there's that 1 for 6 floor. It's sitting there. It's staring. It's going to be there. But he's done it for 6 or 7 games. So probability wise, in about half of his remaining games, he likely continues that type of production. And then David Njoku. Now, I said not to start him his first week back, and it worked out. He only had 37% of the snap share, so I thought they would ease him back because I thought he came back from that ankle a little early, but I did recommend him against Tampa, and he gets 81% of the snaps, so he's back to usage. He gets the 7 targets, but he only goes for 29 yards. Now, fortunately, he caught that beautiful late touchdown, and he caught 5 passes. So you're taking 13.9 in a PPR from a tight end who is not one of your top 3 draft picks all day long. Now, look, with Watson in there, I have to expect that this offense is going to elevate. Now, there's always an understanding that we have to have. Watson hasn't played in a meaningful game in a long time. We have no idea if there's a significant amount of rust there. When he played in the preseason, there was rust, and that was very problematic. So that said, if he does not have rust, that puts us in a very good position. And then Austin Hooper, 4 to 7 targets in his last 3 games, 3 catches, 30 to 41 yards. He's becoming a smaller part of the offense. But again, if you're starving for a tight end and you're getting 0s and 2s, he's somebody you can look at. All right, let's get a couple questions here. And I have a phone call I have to get to. Sorry. All right, answer that. All right, dollar bill. Best pickup, Zonovan Knight, Kyren Williams, JaMychal Hasty. So ETN's injury looks fine. Snell is going to be interesting because Jaylen Warren was out, and if Jaylen Warren's back, he's the number 2. So, and I don't know how long that the injury to Najee is going to last. So I do think Jaylen Warren may not be far. So I think Zonovan Knight was before Carter hurt his ankle, he was involved, and they healthy scratched James Robinson. So, and Kyren Williams, though, like I mentioned him earlier in the show, his snap share, his targets, they're going up, up, up. So I think because they're going to trail, they're starting to bench people. I think Kyren Williams has the best floor in PPR. Knight is interesting, but Carter had a low ankle sprain. And ultimately, I think that they had a great matchup against the Bears, who are terrible against the run, terrible against the pass. So right now I'm going to say Kyren Williams because of that 70% snap share he had last week. That's the way I'm going to go. Thoughts on adding Deshaun Watson? 100%. Add him. I've got Garoppolo, and they're getting dinged up at the skill positions. And Brady, you can't trust. Yeah, add Watson. Yeah, and I know, look, I can't stand what the man did, and I fundamentally would not want to add him, but it's a game we play. It's fantasy football, and it's about points. I just disassociate my name from the name and the points. Don't support anything that man does, but if we're playing this to win, it's a game, and that's kind of how we look at it, I guess. Mark, should you trade Judy and Wilson for Amari Cooper? I would, if you could spare the running back. Because Wilson's bad game, it was Miami wasn't ready to compete. They knew they had that game won. Everybody looked flat. Now, Wilson, I still think is going to be a high-end RB2 the rest of the way. But if you can afford the running back up, I think Cooper's going to go off with Watson. Yes. So I think he's going to have a huge inning. And getting rid of Judy, great. C-Dog, what do I think of the trade you made? Got St. Brown, gave up Pittman and Watson. Yes, you give up that quarterback. You were holding him. You held him for a reason. And you got one of the higher-end PPR machines that has significant ceiling. Pittman's a little too up and down because of his offensive situation. And Kevin, I am not ready for week 13 yet. I am still looking back to week 12, helping people with waivers. So if you come back tomorrow, or you can message me at Jim Coventry NFL on Twitter, I will be happy to answer your question late Wednesday, better on Thursday, and I'll get you then. Everybody, thank you. Have a great day, and we will talk soon.